And now...
What is this?
I know you're gonna dig this.
This is the Flatland Sports Podcast.
Where do you come from? Lubbock, Texas?
Lubbock, Texas.
A place called Lubbock.
I wonder if they think I'm so gorgeous back in Lubbock.
What do you care about Lubbock? You're big time now.
I'm just a little homesick, that's all.
Is that what you want, Larry, to spend the night in Lubbock, Texas at a day's inn with a $15 voucher from Cinnabon?
Lubbock? No, it's near Lubbock.
What's it like there?
It's flat, real flat. You stand on a coffee can, you can see Colorado.
Happy Friday from across the Great Plains of West Texas. This is the Flatland Sports Podcast, free and available worldwide on YouTube. There's a chill in the air. The leaves are beginning to change, and that means only one thing. It is Big 12 football time in America as Texas Tech opens up conference play against the Utah Utes. It'll be an 11 a.m. kickoff, 10 a.m. local Utah time. Fox Big Noon kickoff will be there, so Utah fans, go out and celebrate. Go out and just have a ball tonight. Get some drinks, hang out with some friends, stay out late, maybe even watch the sunrise tonight. Enjoy yourselves the night before the game, and then and be there bright and early for Utah and Texas Tech at Fox Big Noon kickoff. On the show today, we will preview the Utah Utes, take a look around the Big 12, and there was also some news regarding the transfer portal window that we will get into. All that and more. But first, we have Red Raiders in action as Texas Tech soccer travels to Waco to take on the Baylor Bears. That match is tonight at 7 p.m. on ESPN+. Texas Tech comes with a 6-1 record as they enter Big 12 play. Red Raiders are 10-18 all time against the Baylor Bears, but Tech has a 4-game winning streak entering tonight's match. And of course, number 17 Texas Tech football takes on the number 16 Utah Utes of Salt Lake City on Saturday. It'll be an 11 a.m. kickoff on Fox. And of course, you can always listen to the dulcet tones of Brian Jensen, John Harris, and Chris Level on the Texas Tech Sports Network. Utah, coming into this game, they are a 4.5-point favorite. The spread has moved slightly in favor of Utah as the week has progressed. Started out at about 3 to 3.5. What do we need to know about the Utah Utes? Aside from the fact, of course, that they are almost solely responsible for the demise of the Pac-12 conference a couple years ago. They are from Salt Lake City, Utah, formerly of the Pac-12. Begrudgingly joined the Big 12 last season and still waiting on that Big 10 invite. It must have gotten lost in the mail, I guess. Hang in there. It's coming. Struggled heavily in their first season of Big 12 play, going 5-7, 2-8 in the Big 12. Cam Rising went down with a leg injury during the scheduled non-conference game with Baylor, and without Cam Rising, I think I saw a stat. They went through down to their 5th string quarterback. They went through 4 quarterbacks throughout the entire year. They had a different quarterback every 3 games last season. And without Cam Rising, and in that situation, the Utes had the worst graded passing offense in FBS last season. Head coach Kyle Whittingham was also on the verge of retiring over the offseason. He stated, "My decision to stay will be based on what's best for the program, not what's best for me." Whittingham ultimately decided to stay, made the announcement in the style of Michael Jordan returning for the 1995 season, which, all right. Over the offseason, they made some moves. They picked up some good players from the portal, most notably Devin Dampier from New Mexico, the quarterback. Utah comes into this matchup 3-0. The Utes have wins against UCLA, Cal Poly, and New Mexico. The UCLA win looked really, really good to start, and then not so much as the season has progressed, as the Bruins were bulldozed by New Mexico last week. Key players to look at for Utah, of course, Devin Dampier, the quarterback, the junior transfer from New Mexico. He's got 628 yards, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions going into this year. Now, last season at New Mexico, he was 226 for 390, threw for 2,768 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, but also 12 interceptions. A little bit turnover prone last season, but has been perfect so far in the year 2025. And I'll say that word perfect over and over again for no reason at all. He was absolutely perfect, and we're not talking about a broadcaster's jinx here. But Devin Dampier has been perfect all season. Very mobile. He's a run first, kind of throw second type. He can do some real damage if he gets into open field. Leading rusher on the Utah Utes right now at 198 rushing yards on 33 carries. He's had 1 touchdown on the ground. Another player to look at, Wyshawn Parker. He's a sophomore running back. He's got 197 yards, 27 carries, and 2 touchdowns. Very productive behind Devin Dampier. Ryan Davis, the wide receiver, he also transferred in from New Mexico. He's a senior. Has 19 receptions, 171 yards, and 1 touchdown thus far this year. Last season at New Mexico, he had 54 catches, 747 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And also watch out for John Henry Daly, who leads the Utes in sacks. For Texas Tech, the players that I'm specifically looking at this week, Baron Morton looked great last week, looked great all season. Clearly not bothered by the knee injury that he sustained in week 1. He's clearly 100%, and just continues to improve. I talked last year a lot about Baron Morton. Last year, looking to me and reminding me a lot of the sophomore version of Graham Harrell, where very productive at times, very not productive at times. Graham, that year he led the Red Raiders to one of the greatest bowl comebacks of all time, but then also had games where he threw back-to-back pick sixes against Missouri and threw the double rods up at the student section. Baron Morton, as we sit today, is definitely taking the step forward from becoming sophomore Graham Harrell and being junior and senior Graham Harrell as we move on. To go over the stats, he's 57 for 81 so far, and that's really only playing about half of the time. He only played about 1 quarter, maybe one and a. No, he played the first half against Arkansas Pine Bluff. Played 2 full quarters against Kent State, and then played 3 quarters against Oregon State. So 57 and 81, 11 touchdowns and only 1 interception. And, we talked about that interception ad nauseum last week against Oregon State. He's really adopting Matt Leftwich's offense very well. And we're all starting to really learn and understand how great specifically of a play designer and a play caller Mac Leftwich is. He reminds me a lot, his offense reminds me a lot of what a real classic Mike Leach offense looked like. We've all seen the Cliff Kingsbury era offense, the air raid that we've talked about. The biggest difference is that the Mike Leach version of the air raid, the original version of the air raid, really stemmed more from the veer. It took a lot from the triple option and just adopted it to passing, where the whole point of the offense was that during the play, players are making adjustments. Every route is an option. The quarterback is an RPO almost every time, and so it's a little bit like street ball. You're not really running set routes every time and hoping that you schemed it right against the defense. You're lining up against the defense, looking at how they're lining up, making adjustments there, and then making adjustments in play depending on what the defense does. Compare that to, say, like a Cliff Kingsbury run air raid offense where the plays were set. Cliff Kingsbury might make an adjustment pre-snap, but the players themselves and the quarterback didn't have a lot of room to make any changes on the field. Mac Leftwich giving players a lot of freedom to make changes, and it's kind of like the motion offense in basketball. It can be really, really bad, but once it comes together, it's just a thing of beauty. And so I'm guessing we've only seen about 25% of the total playbook from Mac Leftwich thus far, and we're going to see it open up a lot this Saturday. And I'm looking forward to seeing how Baron Morton and company adapt to what is a much better defense with Utah. Also want to look at Coy Eakin. Country boy Coy had a great game last week. 11 catches, 3 touchdowns. One of them just reminded me a lot of the Robert Johnson touchdown against A&M in 2006. Just kind of a fade towards the edge of the end zone, falling down as he makes the catch, staying in bounds. Coy Eakin is having a heck of a year so far, and he could be set to be one of the best receivers in the league. And then, of course, another player to look at, Romello Height. He was 50-50 for last week's game. He ended up playing anyway after pulling a hamstring. He leads the team in sacks with 2.5. Has a tough game ahead with a very good Utah offensive line. So I'm really curious to see how Romello Height and just the rest of that defensive line in general is able to handle what is, I think, one of the best offensive lines in the league. Now, the advantage that Texas Tech has coming into this game is Texas Tech also has one of the best offensive lines in the league, which means that that's who the defense has been practicing against. I don't think they're going to be, sometimes you go into these games and there's an element of shock that comes when you're playing guys who are just bigger, faster, stronger. I don't think you're going to have that. It's really just going to be who wins, which players, which schemes, which sets work best against what is going to be two essentially NFL loaded offensive and defensive lines. It's time now. Let's go to the keys of the game. First, put pressure on Devin Dampier. I want to see the Texas Tech defensive line just break through this offensive line of Utah's. Devin Dampier is turnover prone when under pressure. If you make him uncomfortable, if you force him to do things he doesn't want to do, he's going to throw interceptions, or best case or worst case scenario, he'll just have to roll out and throw the ball out of bounds. And the other side of that too is keep Dampier contained, prevent him from running down the field. Utah doesn't have as many playmakers at wide receiver as Texas Tech does. If you can get Dampier uncomfortable, if you can keep him contained, you're going to come out on top. The other side of that is going to be stop the run. The best part of this Utah team is their offensive line. That is one of the things that they absolutely beefed up over the offseason. If you can win the battle in the trenches, prevent Utah Utes from establishing the run game, and then take it back to key number 1 and just put it back all on Devin Dampier and force Devin Dampier to make plays down the field, Red Raiders will be able to have their way with Utah tomorrow. And then the other side, on the offensive side, be explosive. I want to see Texas Tech punch Utah in the mouth early and often with explosive plays, just like we saw last week between Barrett Morton and all these receivers. Get momentum through the air, force the Utah front 7 to take pressure off defending the run, and then you can let Jacoby Williams and Cam Dickey just have their way with this Utah defense. As I said on the season preview, this is a game that you should take advantage. I'm not going to say it's a must-win, because this is probably the game that you have the best chance of bouncing back from if you don't win. But as we sit today, we don't really know what Utah is going to be. There's a lot of talk that Utah is bound for Arlington. There's a lot of talk that this game will be a rematch, an early prequel to a rematch in Arlington between Texas Tech and Utah. So if Texas Tech is a team that we believe can win the Big 12, can make a serious run in the college football playoff, then this is a game that you absolutely want to win. And then the other side of that, if Utah is not as good as everyone is thinking, if Utah is not a Big 12 championship contender, then this is just a chance to get an early road win in the Big 12. Either way, if Texas Tech is going to compete for a Big 12 title, this is a game that you have to, this is an opportunity that you have to have and you have to take advantage of. You can probably survive the loss, but the lost opportunity will sting for a long time if the good guys lose. I'm going to go ahead. I'm predicting, on Clint Foster's show earlier this week, I predicted a defensive wrestling match, and that's exactly what I'm predicting now. Texas Tech 24, Utah 17. Red Raiders come back from Salt Lake City 1-0 in Big 12 play. It's time now. We'll take a look around the Big 12. and make our predictions. So starting with Oklahoma State and Tulsa, that game is tonight at 6:30 p.m. on ESPN. The spread is 10.5 in favor of Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State has looked really bad, and I mean really, really bad. Tulsa is not great either. This might be Oklahoma State's last chance to get a win this season, unless something just completely changes. But there's no chance that they're going to make it past the injuries that they've been dealing with. So I've got Oklahoma State on upset alert. I think they win 24-14. Next game, SMU TCU. That game is 11 a.m. on ESPN2. TCU a 6.5 point favorite. The final edition of the Iron Skillet. Thank you so much, people who are in charge, for taking away another classic Southwest Conference rivalry. Absolutely sickening that these two teams won't play. And if I remember right, I believe TCU was the driving force behind that. So way to go, Horned Frogs. But TCU, we're going to find out this week if TCU is actually good. SMU, I think, really unfairly got dropped from the AP poll after losing a close one to Baylor. They've looked pretty solid as far as I can see thus far. I am predicting TCU to be that good. They're another dark horse contender for the Big 12 title, in my opinion. So Horned Frogs will win this one 34-24. Next game, North Carolina at UCF. That game will be on Fox at 2:30 p.m. The spread, UCF a 7.5 point favorite. I've said it 1,000 times. I'm preaching to the choir now. UCF is going to be an absolute dumpster fire under Bill Belichick. That whole situation is just terrible. And so I'm picking UNC, a dumpster fire under Bill Belichick. I'm picking UCF 27-21. I don't think UCF has looked particularly good, but I just don't think North Carolina's. Pick the lesser of two evils here. Next game, West Virginia at Kansas. Kansas a 13.5 point favorite. West Virginia looked better than I expected in year one under Rich Rod. Kansas has looked really, really good this season. That said, I'm not fully buying the Jayhawks this year. On Clint Foster's show a couple days ago, I had a real hot take where I picked West Virginia to win by 3. I'm sticking with that prediction. I think West Virginia upsets Kansas on the road. I think this will be the upset for West Virginia before they cool off for the year. So I'm picking West Virginia 24, Kansas 21. Arizona State, Baylor, that's a 6:30 p.m. kickoff on Fox. Baylor, a 2.5 point favorite. Arizona has looked worse than we expected. I was curious to see how they were going to respond to losing Cam Scadaboo. I mean, if we remember going back and looking at the college football playoff, the Sun Devils looked terrible against Texas until Cam Scadaboo woke up, and then Cam Scadaboo pretty much on his own led the charge to get Arizona back in the lead and ultimately to the overtime of that game. Baylor has looked a little bit better. Now that game that they dropped against Auburn, or was it Mississippi State? I think I'm getting some games mixed up here. Excuse me, yeah. They dropped a game against Auburn. Auburn has not looked particularly good at all this year either. But like I said, Baylor is a little bit better than we expected. Arizona State is a little bit worse. I am picking Baylor to win 32-21. BYU at East Carolina. It's a group of 5 road trip. Those games are always weird. East Carolina, definitely one of the better group of 5 road environments across the league. BYU, a 6.5 point favorite. That game, 6:30 on ESPN2. Now, I think BYU is absolutely a dark horse Big 12 contender. They lost Jake Retzlaff, and everyone counted them out. I think something that people are forgetting, though, BYU has all of the parts around them. They have an incredibly good defense. They really just needed to find someone who could be a bus driver at quarterback, And I think absolutely Bear Bachmeier plays that role well as bus driver. BYU could be real dangerous this year, and I'm going to pick them to win 62-17 on the road against ECU. And then finally, the nightcap, Big 12 After Dark. At 9:15 on ESPN, Colorado versus Wyoming from Boulder. Wyoming is famously a tough team to play on the road, but Colorado gets the Cowboys at home. Colorado, this might be one of the last games they win this season. I just don't think they're going to be any good at all with all of the distractions of the offseason. But I am picking Colorado 42-21 over the Wyoming Cowboys. Now, one last thing before we finish up here. The NCAA transfer portal has been voted and approved. We'll take a look at that. The NCAA approved a single transfer portal window, a change from what was 2 transfer portal windows a season ago. Basically, before the players had an opportunity in the winter as well as in the spring, basically at the end of football season and then again at the end of spring sports season to enter the transfer portal window. It was, as coaches will tell you, just too much. One portal is way better. Matt Rule was quoted by CBS Sports that basketball already has a window, so it's not like they're the first sport to do it. It's better when you're not having to retain your roster twice a year, is the feedback that coaches are getting. I agree. And I think from a fan standpoint, one of the biggest improvements that we'll have is bowl season for football will be drastically improved because we're no longer going to have, maybe a little bit, but not to the extent that we have, but we're not going to have players who are off the roster, off the team because they hit the portal and are expected to be on another team in the middle of bowl season. We saw that take place with teams playing for a college football playoff and playing for a national championship. You were losing pieces to your roster while you're trying to compete for a championship. So overall, a much better improvement. How the new system will work, the portal will remain the same for undergraduates. Players just have a much smaller window to make their decision to stay or go. Initially, players could essentially, and I'm quoting CBS Sports, by the way. Initially, players could essentially enter the transfer portal at any time. Then the NCAA adopted the 2 transfer portal windows in August of 22, limiting players to 45 days in the winter and 15 days in May, of which to enter the portal. From there, the number of days continued to shrink from 45 to 40. Under the new system, the portal was expected to open January 2nd and close on January 11th. There was a lot of disagreement as to the timing of the window, so what they've decided now is that the portal will open in the spring, pretty much at the end of the athletic season. And after spring football, there will be a 30-day window, and during that time, players will have the ability to enter the portal. That'll be after spring ball. That makes the most sense in the world to me. You go through your season, you've got new players on campus, you're figuring out what your roster. Spring ball is the closest thing that college football really has to what the NFL has in their preseason. This is the time that you can figure out exactly what your roster is going to look like in the fall, and this makes the most sense for me for players to transfer. CBS Sports has coaching staffs as the winner, absolutely. I mean, you had a guy, and I'm happy it played out this way, but you had a guy in Micah Hudson who left in the winter using the winter portal, spent a semester at Texas A&M, and then transferred back to Texas Tech in the spring. That just makes no sense from a competitive standpoint, from a practicality standpoint. Again, I'm glad he came back. I'm glad he had the opportunity to come back. But it's, as someone is quoting, it was the wild, wild west, and this just makes it a little bit more organized. CBS Sport also has players as the loser. It restricts player movement in football. Sure, but come on, there's got to be more structure here. Players do not need the ability. 18-year-old kids, now they're adults, but still 18-year-olds do not need to have the freedom to just hop around from their commitments willy-nilly. Few other notes from the changes. Given the lack of a spring window, don't be surprised if you see players submitting their name in the portal just in case to create optionality. They do that anyway, though. A lot of players getting their name in the portal just as part of a negotiation for NIL. Now, this shift is going to help the group of 6 in the FCS programs whose rosters are pillaged during the spring window, as Power 4 teams will often look to their rosters to add depth. Overall, I think it's just going to be nothing but good. It's just going to create stability. One thing I will say, though, when that portal window comes in the summer, hold on to your hat, man. It's going to be insane. But maybe we'll see. Maybe when you get players removed from the actual season and they're just going through practice, maybe we'll get them to start making more actual practical business decisions as opposed to emotional decisions where, you've got players who are mad because, something happened during a game. They didn't make a play that they wanted to make, or they got benched for whatever reason, got taken out. It's better for players to approach this from a practicality standpoint rather than an emotional standpoint. But that's all I have for you. We will be back after the game on Twitter X for the official Flatland Sports live post-game show. This is the Flatland Sports Podcast. Feel free, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps the algorithm. Support the channel. I am Christopher Johnson for Flatland Sports. Thank you so much for joining us, and Wreck 'em Tech.